Hello viewers and welcome to another chapter of reading. We are joined by my ever lovely Lily. Such a mama's girl. So, without further ado, let's get started. Without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Chapter 19. The Lion and the Serpent. Harry felt as though he were carrying some kind of talisman inside his chest over the following 2 weeks. A glowing secret that supported him through Umbridge's classes and even made it possible for him to smile blandly as he looked into her horrible bulging eyes. He and the DA were resisting her under her very nose, doing the very thing that she and the Ministry most feared. And whenever he was supposed to be reading Wilbert Slinkhard's book during her lessons, he dwelled instead on the satisfying memories of their most recent meetings, remembering how Neville had successfully disarmed Hermione, how Colin Creevey had mastered the impediments after 3 meetings' hard effort, how Parvati Patil had produced such a good reductor curse that she had reduced the table, carrying all their sneakoscopes to dust. He was finding it almost impossible to fix a regular night of the week for DA meetings, as they had to accommodate 3 separate Quidditch teams' practices, which were often rearranged depending on the weather conditions, but Harry was not sorry about this. He had a feeling that it was probably better to keep the timing of their meetings unpredictable. If anyone was watching them, it would be hard to make out a pattern. Hermione soon devised a very clever method of communicating the time and date of the next meeting to all of the members in case they needed to change it at a short notice, because it would look suspicious if people from different houses were seen crossing the Great Hall to talk to each other too often. She gave each of the members of the DA a fake galleon. Ron became very excited when he saw the basket at first, convinced that she was actually giving out gold. Oh, Ron. You see the numerals around the edge of the coins? Hermione said, holding up one for examination at the end of their 4th meeting. The coin gleamed fat and yellow in the light from the torches. Well, I know it's no galleon, because this is a U.S. quarter. But, just use your imagination. Unreal galleons? That's just a serial number referring to the goblin who cast the coin. On these fake coins, though, the numbers will change to reflect the time and date. Of the next meeting. The coins will grow hot when the date changes. So if you're carrying them in a pocket, you'll be able to feel them. We take one each, and when Harry sets the date of the next meeting, he'll change the numbers on his coin. And because I put a protean charm on them, they'll all change to mimic his. Again, this is a U.S. quarter, but just pretend it's a galleon for story's sake. Moving forth. A blank silence greeted Hermione's words. She looked around at all the faces upturned to her, rather disconcerted. Well, I thought it was a good idea, she said uncertainly. I mean, even if Umbridge asked us to turn out our pockets, there's nothing fishy about carrying a galleon, is there? But, well, if you don't want to use them, you could do a protean charm, said Harry. Yes, said Hermione. But that's Newt's standard, that is, he said weakly. Oh, said Hermione, trying to look modest. Oh, oh, yes, I suppose it is. Oh, Hermione, we love you. We love you very much. How come you're not in Ravenclaw? He demanded, staring at Hermione with something close to wonder. With brains like yours. Well, the Sorting Hat did seriously consider putting me in Ravenclaw during my sorting, said Hermione brightly. But it decided on Gryffindor in the end. So does that mean we're using galleons? There was a murmur of assent and everybody moved forward to collect one from the basket. Again, this is a U.S. quarter, but just pretend. Harry looked sideways at Hermione. You know what these remind me of? No, what's that? The Death Eater's scars. Voldemort touches one of them, and all their scars burn. And they know they've got to join him. Mm, yes, said Hermione quietly. That is where I got the idea. But you notice that I decided to engrave the bits on metal rather than on our member's skin. Yeah, I prefer your way, said Harry, grinning as he slipped his galleon into his pocket. I suppose the only danger with these is that we might accidentally spend them. Fat chance, said Ron, who was examining his own fake galleon with a slightly mournful air. I haven't got any real galleons to confuse it with. Oh, Ron, hug for you. As the first Quidditch match of the season, Gryffindor versus Slytherin, drew nearer, their DA meetings were put on hold because Angelina insisted on almost daily practices. The fact that the Quidditch Cup had not been held for so long added considerably to their interest and excitement surrounding the forthcoming game. The Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs were taking a lively interest in the outcome, for they, of course, would be playing both teams over the coming year, and the heads of house on the competing teams, though they attempted to disguise it under a decent pretense of sportsmanship, were determined to see their side's victory. Harry realized how much Professor McGonagall cared about beating Slytherin when she abstained them from giving homework in the week leading up to the match. We love you, McGonagall. Rest in peace, Maggie Smith. We miss you so much. I think you've got enough to be getting on with at the moment, she said loftily. Nobody could quite believe their ears until she looked directly at Harry and Ron, then said, I've become accustomed to seeing the Quidditch Cup in my study, boys, and I really don't want to hand it over to Professor Snape. So use the extra time to practice, won't you? Snape was no less obviously partisan. He had booked the Quidditch pitch for Slytherin practice so often that the Gryffindors had difficulty getting on it to play. He was also turning a deaf ear to the many reports of Slytherin attempts to hex Gryffindor players in the corridors. When Alicia Spinnet turned up in the hospital wing with her eyebrows growing so thick and fast that they obscured her vision and obstructed her mouth, Snape insisted she must have attempted a hair-thickening charm on herself, and refused to listen to the 14 eyewitnesses who insisted that they had seen the Slytherin keeper, Miles Fletchley, hit her from behind with the jinx while she worked in the library. That is so unfair, Snape! Sorry, I really don't like his favoritism tactics. Harry felt optimistic about Gryffindor's chances. They had, after all, never lost to Malfoy's team. Don't get too cocky, Harry. Admittedly, Ron was still not performing to Wood's standard, but he was working extremely hard to improve. His greatest weakness was the tendency to lose confidence when he made a blunder. Chess reference. I love that. Genius. If he let in one goal, he became flustered and was therefore likely to miss more. On the other hand, Harry had seen Ron make some truly spectacular saves when he was on form. During one memorable practice, he hung one-handed from his broom and kicked the quaffle so hard away from the goal hoop that it soared the length of the pitch and through the center hoop at the other end. The rest of the team felt this save compared favorably with the one recently by Barry Ryan, the Irish international keeper, against Poland's top chaser, Władysław Zamowski. Okay, I am not Polish, so if I mispronounced that surname, I deeply apologize, and I mean no offense to it. I literally have no offenses. I like to learn about other cultures because it helps increase my empathy. And being a future author, I feel like it should be something all future authors should do to help establish that empathy. So, again, if I mispronounce that surname, Polish people, I am very sorry. I am very, very sorry. I am not Polish myself, so I have no idea how you pronounce it. Maybe you could kindly let me know in the comments? That would be a big help. But, moving forth. Even Fred said that Ron might make him and George proud, and that they were seriously considering admitting that he was related to him, something he assured Ron that they had been trying to deny for 4 years. Oh, hugging Ron. The only thing really worrying Harry was how much Ron was allowing the tactics of the Slytherin team to upset him before they even got onto the pitch. Harry, of course, had endured their snide comments for more than 4 years, so whispers of, "Hey, Potty, I heard Warrington swore to knock you off your broom on Saturday," far from chilling his blood, made him laugh. "Warrington's aim's so pathetic, I'd be more worried if he was aiming for the person next to me," he retorted, which made Ron and Hermione laugh and wiped the smirk off Pansy Parkinson's face. But Ron had never endured a relentless campaign of insults, jeers, and intimidation. Oh, hugs for Ron. When Slytherin, some of them 7th years and considerably larger than he was, muttered as they passed in the corridors, "Got your bed booked in the hospital, Wayne Weasley?" He did not laugh, but turned a delicate shade of green. When Draco Malfoy imitated Ron dropping the quaffle, which he did whenever they were within sight of each other, Ron's ears glowed red and his hands shook so badly that he was likely to drop whatever he was holding on at the time, too. Oh, hugs for Ron. October extinguished itself in a rush of howling winds and driving rain. Then November arrived, cold as frozen iron, with hard frost every morning and icy drafts that bit at exposed hands and faces. Well, it's not the end of October yet. We still have a couple of weeks yet, but it'll be here before we know it, so stay warm in advance. The skies and the ceiling of the great hall turned a pale pearly gray. The mountains around Hogwarts became snow-capped, and the temperature in the castle dropped so far that many students wore their thick protective dragon skin gloves in the corridors between lessons. The morning of the match dawned bright and cold. When Harry awoke, he looked around at Ron's bed and saw him sitting bolt upright, his arms around his knees, staring fixedly into space. Oh, hugging Ron. "You all right?" said Harry. Ron nodded, but did not speak. Harry was reminded forcibly of the time that Ron accidentally put a slug vomiting charm on himself. Nice callback to Chamber of Secrets! He looked just as pale and sweaty as he'd done then, not to mention as reluctant to open his mouth. "You just need some breakfast," Harry said bracingly. "Come on." The great hall was filling up fast when they arrived. The talk louder and the mood more exuberant than usual. That sounds like a autistic nightmare. Not to mention it would get my anxiety going. As they passed the Slytherin table, there was an upsurge of noise. Harry looked around and saw that nearly everyone there was wearing, in addition to their usual green and silver scarves and hats, silver badges in the shape of what seemed to be crowns. For some reason, many of them waved at Ron, laughing uproariously. Harry tried to see what was written on the badges as he walked by, but he was too concerned to get Ron past their table quickly to linger long enough to read them. They received a rousing welcome at the Gryffindor table. Okay, as a Gryffindor, I have to represent. Okay, moving forth. Where everyone was wearing red and gold. Well, I have red on my shirt, and probably a little bit of yellow for the gold, but apart from that, no. But that's okay. My bookmark shows my Gryffindor spirit. Moving forth. But far from raising Ron's spirits, the cheers seemed to sap the last of his morale. He collapsed onto the nearest bench, looking as though he were facing his final meal. Oh. Hugging Ron. That's going to be a recurring theme in this chapter. "I must have been mental to do this," he said in a croaky whisper. "Mental." "Don't be thick," said Harry firmly, passing him a choice of cereals. I wonder what's the choice of cereals. Frosted Flakes, Cheerios, Lucky Charms. Do they even have these in England? Or in the UK? I don't even know. But whatever it is, I'm sure it's gotta be something I have to be familiar with. Moving forth. "You're going to be fine. It's normal to be nervous." "I'm rubbish," croaked Ron. "I'm lousy. I can't play to save my life. What was I thinking?" Oh, fucking Ron. I warned you this was going to be a recurring theme. "Get a grip," said Harry sternly. "Look at that save you made with your foot the other day. Even Fred and George said it was brilliant." Ron turned a tortured face to Harry. "That was an accident," he whispered miserably. "I didn't mean to do it. I stepped off my broom when none of you were looking, and I was trying to get back on, and I kicked the cloth by accident." "Well," said Harry, recovering quickly from this unpleasant surprise. "A few more accidents like that, and the game's in the bag, isn't it?" Hermione and Ginny sat down opposite them, wearing red and gold scarves, gloves, and rosettes. Ooh. I love you, fashion. Rosettes are very beautiful. And I have a scarf somewhere, but I don't know where it is on the top of my head. If I find it for next week, expect to see it next week. Otherwise, you might have to wait until it gets to be a chillier chapter day where I'll wear it. But moving forth. How are you feeling? Ginny asked Ron, who was now staring into the dregs of milk at the bottom of his empty cereal bowl, as though seriously considering attempting to drown himself in them. He's just nervous, said Harry. But that's a good sign. You'll never fail to perform as well on exams if you're not a bit nervous, said Hermione heartedly. Hello, said a vague and dreamy voice from behind them. Harry looked up. Luna Lovegood had drifted over from the Ravenclaw table. Many people were staring at her, and a few openly laughing and pointing. She had managed to procure a hat shaped like a life-sized lion's head, which was perched precariously on her head. Okay, I just love this, and it definitely would be something I would do, even if I weren't in Gryffindor. I would definitely show my support for the other houses. And honestly, I just want a hat like this in real life too. Why? Pay attention. I'm supporting Gryffindor, said Luna, pointing unnecessarily at her hat. Look what it does. She reached up and tapped the hat with her wand. Well, you know where this is going. Bookmark as my wand. Just pretend the top. Oh wait. Okay, just pretend my just pretend that my headband here is the hat. She reached up and tapped the hat with her wand. Again, pretend my bookmark's the wand. It opened its mouth wide and gave an extremely realistic roar that made everyone in the vicinity jump. Okay, time to show off my roar. You ready? What do y'all think? Let me know. Moving forth. It's good, isn't it? Said Luna happily. I wanted to have it chewing up a serpent to represent Southern, you know, but there wasn't time. Anyway, good luck, Ronald. She drifted away. They had not quite recovered from the shock of Luna's hat before Angelina came hurrying toward them, accompanied by Katie and Alicia, whose eyebrows had been mercifully returned to normal by Madame Pomfrey. When you're ready, she said, we're going to go straight down to the pit, check out conditions, and change. We'll be there in a bit. Harry reassured her. Ron's just got to have some breakfast. It became clear after 10 minutes, however, that Ron was not capable of eating anything more, and Harry thought it best to get him down to the changing rooms. As they rose from the table, Hermione got up too, taking Harry's arm and drew him to one side. Don't let Ron see what's on those Southern's badges, she whispered urgently. Harry looked questioningly at her, but she shook her head warningly. Ron just stumbled over to him, looking lost and desperate. Good luck, Ron, said Hermione, standing on tiptoe and kissing him on the cheek. Aww, they do care. They do care about each other. And you, Harry? Ron seemed to come to himself slightly as they walked back across the great hall. He touched the spot on his face where Hermione had just kissed him, looking puzzled, as though he was not quite sure what just happened. He seemed too distracted to notice much around him, but Harry cast a curious glance at the crown-shaped badges as they passed the Slytherin table, and this time he made out the words etched on them. Hold on. Weasley is our king. With an unpleasant feeling that this could mean nothing good, he hurried Ron across the entrance hall, down the stone steps, and out into the icy air. The frosty grass crunched under their feet as they hurried down the sloping walks towards the stadium. There was no wind at all, and the sky was a uniform pearly white, which meant that visibility would be good without the drawback of direct sunlight to the eyes. Harry pointed out that these encouraging factors to Ron as they walked, but he was not sure that Ron was listening. Angelina had changed already and was talking to the rest of the team when they entered. Harry and Ron pulled on their robes. Ron attempted to do his back to front for several minutes before Alicia took pity on him and went to help. Oh, poor Ron. I know what it's like to get your nerves all worked up, but hopefully with this you've learned to calm down a bit. And then sat down to listen to the pre-match talk while the babble of voices outside grew steadily louder as the crowd came pouring out of the castle toward the pitch. Okay, I've only just found out the final lineup for Slytherin, said Angelina, consulting a piece of parchment. Last year's beaters, Derek and Bull, have left now, but it looks as though Montague's replaced them with the usual gorillas, rather than anyone who can fly particularly low. They're two folks called Crabbe and Goyle. I don't know much about them. We do, said Harry and Ron together. Well, they don't look bright enough to tell one end of the broom from another, said Angelina, pocketing her parchment. But I was always surprised Derek and Bull managed to find their way onto the pitch without signposts. Crabbe and Goyle are in the same mold, Harry assured her. They could hear hundreds of footsteps mounting the benches of the spectator stands now. Some people were singing, though Harry could not make out the words. He was starting to feel nervous, but he knew his butterflies weren't as nothing to Ron's, who was clutching his stomach and staring straight ahead again, his jaw set and his complexion pale gray. Oh, hugging Ron. It's time, said Angelina in a hushed voice, looking at her watch. No watch, but just pretend. Come on, everyone. Good luck. The team rose, shouldered their brooms, and marched in a single file out of the changing room and into the dazzling sky. A roar of sound greeted them, in which Harry could still hear singing, though it was muffled by the cheers and whistles. Okay, I'm gonna do each separately, but on a more quiet level. Woo! 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 I hope you liked it. The Slytherin team were standing, waiting for them. They too were wearing those silver crown-shaped badges. The new captain, Montague, was built along the same lines as Dudley, with massive forearms like hairy hams. Okay, I was taking it literal. Sorry, I was just imagining arms literally as hams that are covered in hair. That's just no. Nope. Moving forth. Behind him marched Crabbe and Goyle, almost as large, blinking stupidly, swinging their new beaters' backs. Malfoy stood to one side, the sunlight gleaming on his white blonde head. He caught Harry's eye and smirked, tapping the crown-shaped badge on his chest. "Captain, shake hands," ordered the umpire, Madam Umpire. Okay, it seems a little weird to use a baseball term when we're talking about Quidditch. So I'm going to reread it as, "Captain, shake hands," ordered the referee. Madam hooped as Angelina and Montague reached each other. Harry could tell that Montague was trying to crush Angelina's fingers, though she did not wince. "Mount your brooms." Madam Hooch placed her whistle in her mouth and blew. "Okay." The balls were released and the 14 players shot upward. Out of the corner of his eye, Harry saw Ron streak off toward the goal hoops. He zoomed higher, dodging a bludger, and set off on a wide whap at the pitch, gazing around for a glint of gold. On the other side of the stadium, Draco Malfoy was doing exactly the same. "And it's Johnson! Johnson with the quaffle! What a play that girl's! I've been saying it for years, but she still won't go out with me! Johnson!" yelled Professor McGonagall. "Just a fun fact, Professor, as a bit of interest. And she's... That's Warrington. She's past Montague. She's... Ouch! Been hit from... behind a bludger from Crabbe. Montague catches the quaffle. Montague heading back up the pitch and... Nice bludger there from George Weasley. That's a bludger to the head from Montague. He drops the quaffle caught by Katie Bell. Katie Bell of Gryffindor reverse passes to this year's spin and spins away." Lee Jordan's commentary rang through the stadium, and Harry whistled as hard as he could through all the wind whistling in his ears and the din of the crowd, all yelling, booing, and singing. Mixed reactions much? But anyway, I really hope you liked my announcing voice again. It has been far too long. Moving forth. Judges Warrington avoids a bludger, just call Alicia, and the crowd are loving this. Just listen to them. What's that they're singing? And as Lee paused to listen, the song rose loud and clear from the sea of green and silver in the southern section of the stands. Being a Ron lover, it pains me to bring this to life, but it is in the chapter, so I must. Excuse me. Weasley cannot save a thing, he cannot block a single ring. That's why Slytherins all sing, Weasley is our king. Weasley was born in a bin, he always lets the quaffle in. Weasley will make sure we win, Weasley is our king. And Alicia passes back to Angelina, Lee shouted, and as Harry swerved, his inside boiling at what he had just heard, he knew Lee was trying to drown out the sound of the singing. Come on, Angela. Looks like she's just got the Cupid's beat. She shoots, Blacksmith, the Slytherin keeper, had saved the goal. He threw the quaffle to Warrington, who sped off with it, zigzagging in between Alicia and Katie. The singing from below grew louder and louder as he drew nearer and nearer to Ron. Again, I'm a Ron fan, so this is not my views, but I have to read it. I have to bring it to life to continue this chapter. Weasley is our king, Weasley is our king. He always lets the quaffle win, Weasley is our king. Harry could not help himself. Abandoning his search for the snitch, he turned his firebolt toward Ron, a lone figure at the far end of the pitch, hovering before the 3 goal hoops, while the massive Warrington pelted toward him. And it's Warrington with the quaffle. Warrington heading for the goal. He's out of blood range, just the keeper ahead. A great swell of song rose from the Slytherin stands below. Again, I'm a Ron lover, but I have to bring it to life. Weasley cannot save a thing, he cannot block a single ring. So it's the test for the new Gryffindor keeper, Weasley, brother of the Beater's friend George, and a promising new talent on the team. Come on, Ron! But the scream of delight came from the Slytherin end. Ron had dived wildly, his arms wide, and the quaffle had soared between them straight through Ron's central hoop. Slytherin score! Came Lee's voice amid the cheering and booing from the crowds below. So that's 10-0 to Slytherin. Bad luck, Ron. The Slytherin sang even louder. Again, I have to continue the chapter. Not my views. Not my views at all because I love Ron as a character. But I have to continue forth. Weasley was born in a band. He always lets the quaffle win. And yeah. And Gryffindor back in possession, and it's Katie Bell tanking up the pitch, cried Wee valiantly, though the singing was now so deafening that he could hardly make himself heard above it. I have to continue with the chapter, not my views, but again, I have to continue the chapter. Weasley will make sure we win. Weasley is our king. Harry, what are you doing? Screamed Angelina, soaring past him to keep up with Katie. Get going! Harry realized that he had been stationary in midair for more than a minute, watching the progress of the match without sparing a thought for the whereabouts of the snitch. Horrified, he went into a dive and started circling the pitch again, staring around, trying to ignore the chorus now thundering through the stadium. I have to continue it, you know where it goes. Weasley is our king. Weasley is our king. There was no sign of this snitch anywhere he looked. Malfoy was still circling the stadium, just like Harry. They passed midway around the pitch going in opposite directions, and Harry heard Malfoy singing loudly. Not my views. I love Ron as a character, but I have to continue the chapter. Weasley was born in a bin. And it's Warrington again, belled Lee, who passes to Pussy. Pussy's off past Spinnet. Come on now, Anthony, you can take him. Turns out you can. But nice blunder from Fred Weasley. I mean, George Weasley. Oh, who cares? One of them anyway. Even we can't tell his best friends apart. That's funny. And Wilmington drops the quaffle and Katie Bell drops it too. So that's Montague with the quaffle. Slytherin Captain Montague takes the quaffle and he's up the pitch. Come on now, Gryffindor, block him! Harry zoomed around the end of the stadium behind the Slytherin goal hoops, willing himself not to look at what was going on at Ron's end. As he sped past the Slytherin keeper, he heard Wesley saying along with the crowd below. Yep, you know where it's headed. Not my views, but I have to continue the chapter. Weasley cannot save a thing. And Pussy starts Alicia again, and he's headed straight for the goal. Stop it, Ron! Harry did not have to look to see what happened. There was a terrible groan from the Gryffindor end, coupled with fresh screams and applause from the Slytherins. Looking down, Harry saw the pug-faced Pansy Parkinson right at the front of the stands, her back to the pitch as she conducted the Slytherin supporters who were roaring. I have to do it to continue the chapter. Not my views, but I have to continue forth. That's why Slytherins all saying Weasley is our king. The 20-0 was nothing. There was still time for Gryffindor to catch up or catch the snitch. A few goals and they would be in the lead as usual. Harry assured himself, bobbing and weaving through the other players in pursuit of something shiny that turned out to be Montague's watch strap. Makes me wonder what type of watch it is. Rolex, maybe? But Ron let in 2 more goals. There was an edge of panic in Harry's desire to find the snitch now. If he could just get it soon and finish the game quickly. And Katie Bell of Gryffindor dodges Pussy, ducks Montague. Nice sport, Katie. and she throws to Johnson. Angelina Johnson takes the quaffle. She's past Warrington. She's headed for goal. Come on now, Angelina. Gryffindor score! It's 40-10. 40-10 to Slytherin, and Pussy has the quaffle. Harry could hear Luna's ludicrous wine hat roaring amidst the Gryffindor cheers and felt heartened. Okay, here we go. Only 30 points in it. That was nothing. They could pull back easily. Harry ducked a bludger that Crabbe sent rocketing in his direction, and resumed his frantic scouring of the pitch for the snitch, keeping one eye on Malfoy in case he showed signs of having spotted it. But Malfoy, like him, was continuing to soar around the stadium, searching fruitlessly. Pussy throws to Warrington, Warrington to Montague, Montague back to Pussy. Johnson intervenes. Johnson takes the quaffle. Johnson to Bell. This looks good. I mean bad. Bell's hit by a bludger from Goyle of Slytherin, and it's Pussy in possession again. I have to do it to continue the chapter. Weasley was born in a bin. He always lets the quaffle in. Weasley will make sure we win. But Harry had seen it at last. The tiny, fluttering golden snitch was hovering feet from the ground at the southern end of the pitch. He dived. In a matter of seconds, Malfoy was streaking out of the sky on Harry's left, a green and silver bird lying flat on his broom. The snitch skirted the foot of one of the goal hoops and scooted off toward the other side of the stands. Its change in direction suited Malfoy, who was nearer. Harry pulled his firebolt around. He and Malfoy were now neck and neck. Feet from the ground, Harry lifted his right hand from his broom, stretching towards the snitch to his right. Malfoy's arm extended too, reaching, groping. It was over in 2 breathless, desperate, wind-swept seconds. Harry's fingers closed around the tiny, struggling ball. Malfoy's fingernails scrabbled the back of Harry's hand hopelessly. Harry pulled his broom upward, holding the struggling ball in his hand, and the Gryffindor spectators screamed their approval. Well, I'm not going to scream, because I do not want to alert any of my family members, but I will do this. They were saved. It did not matter that Ron had led in those goals. Nobody would remember as long as Gryffindor had won. Wham! A bludger hit Harry squarely in the small of the back, and he flew forward off his broom. Luckily he was only 5 or 6 feet above the ground, having dived so low to catch the snitch. But he was winded all the same when he landed flat on his back on the frozen pitch. He heard Madame Hooch's shrill whistle. An uproar in the stands compounded of cat calls, angry yells, and jeering. Then a thud followed by Angelina's frantic voice. "Are you all right?" "Of course I am," said Harry grimly, taking her hand and allowing her to pull him to his feet. Madame Hooch was zooming toward one of the Slytherin players above him, though she could not see who it was at this angle. Funny thing about my copy, since when is Madame Hooch, hold on. Do you see it? Yeah, it says he. Since when is Madame Hooch male? Just a little thing I've noticed that kind of bugs me, but But moving forward. It was that dog crab, said Angeline angrily. He whacked the bludger at you the moment he saw you got the stitch. But we won, Harry. We won. Harry heard a snort from behind him and turned around. Still holding the snitch tightly in his hand, Draco Malfoy had landed close by. White-faced with fury, he was still managing to sneer. Saved Weasley's neck, haven't you? Said Harry. I've never seen a worse keeper. But then, he was born in a bin. Did you like my lyrics, Potter? No. No, I did not. Which is why I kept addressing that they are not my views, but I have to continue the chapter. Harry did not answer. He turned away to meet the rest of the team, who were now landing one by one, yelling and punching in the air in triumph, all except Ron, who had dismounted from his broom over by the goalpost and was making his way slowly back to the changing rooms alone. Oh, hugging you, Ron. We wanted to write another couple of verses, Malfoy called as Katie and Alicia hugged Harry. But we couldn't find rhymes for Fat and Ugly. We wanted to sing about his mother, see? Talk about sour grapes, said Angelina, casting Malfoy a disgusted look. We couldn't fit in useless loser, either. For his father, you know. Fred and George had realized what Malfoy was talking about. Halfway through shaking Harry's hand, they stiffened, looking around at Malfoy. Leave it, said Angelina at once, taking Fred by the arm. Leave it, Fred. Let him yell. He's just so he lost. The jumped up little. But you like the Weasleys, don't you, Potter? Said Malfoy, sneering. Spend holidays there and everything, don't you? Can't see how you stand the thing. But I suppose when you've been dragged up by muggles, even the Weasley's hovel smells okay. Harry grabbed a hold of George. Meanwhile, it was taking the combined efforts of Angelina, Alicia, and Katie to stop Fred leaping on Malfoy, who was laughing openly. Harry looked around for Madame Hooch, but she was still berating Crabbe for his illegal bludger attack. Well, perhaps, said Malfoy, veering as he backed away, you can remember what your mother's house stank like, Potter, and Weasley's pigsty reminds you of it. Harry was not aware of releasing George, but all he knew was that a second later both of them were sprinting out at Malfoy. He had completely forgotten the fact that all the teachers were watching. All he wanted to do was cause Malfoy as much pain as possible. With no time to draw out his wand, he merely drew back the fist, clenching the snitch, and sank it as hard as he could into Malfoy's stomach. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Harry! Harry! George! No! He could hear girls' voices screaming, Malfoy yelling, George swearing, a whistle blowing, and the bellowing of the crowd around him. But he did not care. Not until somebody in the vicinity yelled, Impedimenta! And only when he was knocked over backward by the force of the spell did he abandon the attempt to punch every inch of Malfoy he could reach. What do you think you're doing? Screamed Madame Hooch as Harry leapt to his feet again. It was she who had hit him with the impediment jinx. She was holding her whistle in one hand and a wand in the other. Her broom lay abandoned several feet away. Malfoy was curled up on the ground, whimpering and moaning, his nose bloody. George was sporting a swollen whip. Fred was still being forcibly restrained by the three chasers, and Crabbe was cackling in the background. I've never seen behavior like it. Back up to the castle, both of you, and straight to your head of house's office. Go, now! Harry and George marched off the pitch, both panting, neither saying a word to each other. The howling and jeering of the crowd grew fainter and fainter until they reached the entrance hall, where they could hear nothing except the sound of their own footsteps. Harry became aware that something was still struggling in his right hand, the knuckles of which he had bruised against Malfoy's jaw. Looking down, he saw the Snitch's silver wings protruding from between his fingers, struggling for release. They had barely reached Professor McGonagall's office when she came along the corridor behind them. She was wearing a Gryffindor scarf, but tore it from her throat with shaking hands as she towed the booking women. In! She said furiously, pointing at the door. Harry and George entered. She strode around behind her desk and faced them, quivering with rage as she threw the Gryffindor scarf aside onto the floor. Well, she said, I have never seen such a disgraceful exhibition. 2 on to 1. Explain yourselves. Malfoy provoked us, said Harry stupidly. Provoked you! Shouted Professor McGonagall, slamming a fist onto her desk, so that her tartan biscuit tin slid sideways off it and burst open, littering the floor with ginger roots. He just lost, hasn't he? Of course he wanted to provoke you. But what on earth can he have said that justified what you two? He insulted my parents, snarled George, and Harry's mother. But instead of leaving it to Madame Hooch to sort out, you two decided to give an exhibition of Muggle bullying, did you? Bellowed Professor McGonagall. Have you any idea what you... Hem. George and Harry both spun around. Dolores Umbridge was standing in the doorway, wrapped in a green tweed cloak that greatly enhanced her resemblance to a giant toad. And smiling in the horribly, sickly, ominous way that Harry had come to associate with imminent misery. I mean, that's rather valid. May I help, Professor McGonagall? Asked Professor Umbridge in her most poisonously sweet voice. Blood rushed into Professor McGonagall's face. Help! She repeated in a constricted voice. What do you mean, help? Professor Umbridge moved forward into the office, still smiling her sickly smile. Why, I thought you might be grateful for a little extra authority. Harry would not have been surprised to see sparks fly from Professor McGonagall's nostrils. You thought wrong, she said, turning her back on Umbridge. Now, you two had better listen closely. I do not care what provocation Malfoy offered you. I do not care if he insulted every family member you possess. Your behavior was disgusting, and I am giving each of you a week's worth of detention. Do not look at me like that, Potter. You deserve it. And if either of you ever... Professor McGonagall closed her eyes as though praying for patience as she turned her face toward Professor Umbridge again. Yes, I think they deserve more than detentions, said Umbridge, smiling still more broadly. McGonagall's eyes flew open. But unfortunately, she said with an attempt at a reciprocal smile that made her look as though she had lockjaw. It is what I think that counts, as they are in my house, Dolores. Well, actually, Minerva, simpered Umbridge, I think you'll find it that what I think does count. Now where is it? Cornelius just sent it. I mean, she gave a little pause as she rummaged through her handbag. The minister just sent it. Ah, yes. She pulled out a piece of parchment that she now unfurled, clearing her throat fussily before starting to read what it said. Educational Decree number 25. Not another one! Exclaimed Professor McGonagall violently. Well, yes, said Umbridge, still smiling. As a matter of fact, Minerva, it was you who made me see that we needed a further amendment. You remember how you overrode me when I was unwilling to allow the Gryffindor Quidditch team to reform? How you took the case to Dumbledore, who insisted the team be allowed to play? Well, I couldn't have that. So I contacted the minister at once, and he quite agreed with me that the High Inquisitor has to have the power to strip pupils of privileges. Or she, that is to say, I, would have less authority than common teachers. And you see now, don't you remember how right I was in attempting to stop the Gryffindor team reforming dreadful tempers? Anyway, I was reading out our amendment, and then the High Inquisitor will henceforth have supreme authority over all punishments, sanctions, and removal of privileges pertaining to the students of Hogwarts, and the power to alter such punishments, sanctions, and removals of privileges as may have been ordered by other staff members. Signed Cornelius Fudge, Minister of Magic, Order of Merlin, First Class, etc., etc. She rolled up the parchment and put it back into her handbag, still smiling. So, I really think I will have to ban these two from playing Quidditch ever again, she said, looking from Harry to George and back again. Harry felt the snitch fluttering madly in his hand. Ban us, he said, and his voice sounded strangely distant. For playing ever again? Yes, Mr. Potter, I think a lifelong ban ought to do the trick, said Umbridge, her smile waning still further as she watched him struggle to comprehend what she said. You and Mr. Weasley here, and I think, to be safe, this young man's twin ought to be stopped too. If his teammates had not restrained him, I feel sure he would have attacked young Mr. Malfoy as well. I would want their broomsticks confiscated, of course. I shall keep them safely in my office, to make sure there is no infringement of my ban. But I am not unreasonable, Professor McGonagall, she continued, turning back to Professor McGonagall, who was now standing as still as though carved from ice, staring at her. The rest of the team can continue playing. I saw no signs of violence from any of them. Well, good afternoon to you. And with a look of the utmost satisfaction, Umbridge left the room, leaving a horrified silence in her wake. Banned, said Angelina in a hollow voice late that evening into the common room. Banned? No Seeker and no Beaters? What on earth are we going to do? It did not feel as though they had won the match at all. Everywhere Harry looked, there were disconsolate and angry faces. The team themselves were slumped around the fire, all apart from Ron, who had not been seen since the end of the match. It's just so unfair, said Alicia numbly. I mean, what about Crabbe? And that bludger he hit after the whistle had blown? Has she banned him? No, said Ginny miserably. She and Hermione sitting on either side of Harry. He's just got lines. I heard I took you laughing about it at dinner. And banning Fred when he didn't even do anything, said Alicia, furiously pummeling her knee with her fist. It's not my fault I didn't, said Fred with a very ugly look on his face. I would have pounded the the idiot to a... I would have pounded the scumbag to a pulp if you three hadn't been holding me back. Harry stared miserably at the dark window. Well, my window is dark. Snow was falling. Well, no snow yet, but hopefully someday. Just not while it's still autumn, please, Jack and Elsa. Moving forth. The snitch he had caught earlier was now zooming around and around the corridor. People were watching its progress as though hypnotized, and Crookshanks was leaping from chair to chair, trying to catch it. Aw, I would love to have seen that in the films. That would have been cute. I'm going to bed, said Angelina, getting slowly to her feet. Maybe this will all turn out to have been a bad dream. Maybe I'll wake up tomorrow and find we haven't played yet. She was soon followed by Alicia and Katie. Fred and George sloped off to bed sometime later, glowering at everyone as they passed. And Ginny went not long after that. Only Harry and Hermione were left beside the fire. Have you seen Ron? Hermione asked in a low voice. Harry shook his head. I think he's avoiding us, said Hermione. Who do you think he... But at that precise moment there was a creaking sound behind them as the fat lady swung forward and Ron came clambering through the portrait. He was very pale indeed, and there was snow in his hair. When he saw Harry and Hermione, he stopped dead in his tracks. Where have you been? Said Hermione, anxiously springing up. Walking, Ron mumbled. He was still wearing his Quidditch things. You look frozen, said Hermione. Come and sit down. Ron walked to the fireside and sank into the chair farthest from Harry's, not looking at him. The stolen snitch zoomed over their heads. I'm sorry, Ron mumbled, looking at his feet. What for? Said Harry. For thinking I can play Quidditch, said Ron. I'm going to resign first thing tomorrow. If you resign, said Harry testily, there'll only be 3 players left on the team. And when Ron looked puzzled, he said, I've been given a lifetime ban. So are Fred and George. What? Ron yelped. When Hermione told him the full story, Harry could not bear to tell it again. When she had finished, Ron looked more anguished than ever. This is not my fault. You didn't make me punch Malfoy, said Harry angrily. If I wasn't so lousy at Quidditch, it's got nothing to do with that. It was that stone that wound me up. It would have wound anyone up. Hermione got up and walked to the window, away from the argument, watching the snow swirling down against the pane. Look, drop it, will you? Harry burst out. It's bad enough without you blaming yourself for everything. But Ron said nothing, but sat gazing miserably at the damp hem of his robes. After a while, he said in a dull voice, This is the worst I've ever felt in my life. Join the club, said Harry bitterly. Well, said Hermione, her voice trembling slightly, I can think of one thing that might cheer you both up. Oh, yeah? Said Harry skeptically. Yeah, said Hermione, turning away from the pitch-black, snow-flecked window, a broad smile spreading across her face. Hagrid's back. And that is the end of this, that is the end of this action-packed chapter. Join me next week for Chapter 20, Hagrid's Tale. Until then, bye!